This time, on episode 280 of Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., we'll be talking Avengers Endgame, Marvel news, and your feedback.
I'm Stephen John Drew from Better Podcasting, a podcast about podcasting, part of the Gonna Geek Network. Just like the show you're checking out now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find fantastic geeky shows at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
You have been granted clearance by director Alfonso Mack Mackenzie. Stand by for a S.H.I.E.L.D. debriefing. All information to be discussed here is classified and may only be discussed among agents granted clearance by the S.H.I.E.L.D. director.
Now it's time for your scheduled debriefing. I'm Director SP.
I'm Agent Haley.
I'm Agent Lauren.
And I'm Consultant Michelle.
It is with great pleasure tonight on this momentous occasion that I introduce Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. newest agent. She is no longer a consultant. She's been with us since 2017 as a consultant and has finally been accepted as agent status. Sorry about your pay cut, Michelle.
Yay! Congrats!
Welcome.
Woo!
Do I get a new lanyard?
No, it means you don't get a new lanyard every time you come in anymore. Now you have to reuse the same one, and if you lose it, they take it out of your pay.
Oh, okay. Wow, I'm Agent Michelle?
Agent Michelle.
Oh, well, thank you.
Effective immediately. Yep. All right, now that we got that out of the way, welcome to Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. We're a Marvel Comic Universe fan show. The show's recorded on Sunday, April 28th, 2019, live from the wreckage of the Avengers compound and broadcast galactic-wide via www.geeks.live. Come on and join our live chat as we record. Ladies, happy National Superhero Day.
That seems appropriate for the topic.
Yeah, it seems really fortuitous.
I was looking at the national days of the day, and that one popped up. I'm like, that's us. That's it. That's going to be it.
Aw, it was created in 1995 by Marvel Comics employees.
Aw.
How appropriate. I wonder if they knew that Endgame was premiering this weekend.
The Endgame was coming.
And Free Comic Book Day is next Saturday, too.
Yes.
Woo-hoo. Also, may the 4th be with you.
Indeed.
So lots of geeky stuff going on.
Early May the 4th be with y'all.
And with you.
Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. is a fan-based podcast on the ABC television show Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the multiple Marvel small screen series, and the Marvel cinematic and comic book universes in general.
Because that is America's ass.
If you would like to talk to us about America's ass, or any of the other asses in the film, you can visit our website, legendsofshield.com.
You can leave us a voicemail about which outfit looks best on that America's ass at 844-THE-BUS-1. That's 844-843-2871.
You can tell us on Facebook which superhero ass you appreciated the most in the movie at Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. Podcast.
You can complain to SP about the number of times we said ass in the opening of this podcast by tweeting us at Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D.
You can look at our faces as we talk about asses on YouTube, www.youtube.com/GonnaGeek.
You can tell your Amazon device to enable Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. skill.
And you can join our Discord server chat at GonnaGeek.com/Discord.
And remember, Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. is a proud member of the GonnaGeek.com network.
No matter how many times they try to get rid of us.
As a special note, I just want to point out that even in the spoilers channel on the Discord server, that people weren't talking, not because they weren't there, not because they didn't want to talk about it, because they didn't want to spoil anybody else. So I just want to say thank you to everybody in the Gonna Geek Discord server for not spoiling anybody. And that's going to be important as we go through the rest of this episode.
Yeah, that said, we are going to spoil the hell out of this episode.
I think this movie, more than a lot of the other Marvel films, really benefits from not being spoiled.
I would agree. And that's why I was saying thank you to everybody for playing nicely and not trying to spoil everybody. We will keep the Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. channel spoiler free. until after next weekend, and then it's fair game as far as I'm concerned. That gives you 2 weeks to see the movie or get spoiled on it or whatever. So that's as good as we can do. I mean, that I think that's going above and beyond, but we are trying to be affable to everybody because we realize that not everybody could get a ticket, busy with their lives or whatever this past weekend. We understand what's going on. In the meantime, let's go ahead and just get into the movie. We're talking Avengers Endgame today. It debuted April 25th on the preview night, 2019, and it was rated PG-13, although the final card at the end in the movie theater that I was sitting at said it was rated R, so that was kind of weird. But anyway, and a runtime of 3 hours and 1 minute. Of course, it's longer than that when you talk about the trailers and the commercials ahead of the game and everything. However, we wanted to get this out of the way at the beginning. This movie set box office records, not just with Marvel movies, not just with comic book movies or sci-fi movies, but all movies. It had the highest preview night, which is the Thursday before the weekend, at $60 million domestic. In domestic, we're terming as North America. It had the biggest opening day of any movie at $155.7 million, and that was domestic, and that did include preview night. It had an estimated weekend domestic box office of around $350 million. We're still at Sunday night, so it's still estimated. But even that is roughly $100 million more than the previous record holders of Avengers Infinity War and Star Wars The Force Awakens. It had the worldwide opening of any movie at $1.209 billion. Yes, that's with a B. $1 billion.
I have a question.
Quest.
Did somebody on this podcast maybe say that they thought that this movie might have $1 billion opening weekend?
Yep, and that was you. If you go back to the previous episode, Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. number 279, you will hear Haley talking about that.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think anybody, and my thing was, when is it going to make $2 billion? Because it is, and it's just a question of when.
It's insane.
At this point. Yeah. It's going to be great. Do you think it's got a shot at $3 billion?
Maybe. I don't. The problem is that Spider-Man is going to start crowding it out of theaters before too terribly long.
So then the question is how fast it can ratchet up, and if people are still going to go. You know, what's the drop off? And there's whole articles about what factor to use. Is it a 1.4 or 2.4 or 2.2 factor or whatever? I'm like, whatever.
Either way, it's going to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
My other guess was that it might make $1 billion domestically, which no movie has ever done before.
That's right. The closest one was
78 million, I think.
Yeah,
976, something like that.
Yeah. So lots of money funneling, and it wasn't just us. You know, it wasn't just your geeks. It was the entire world was going to this.
Anybody who had ever seen a Marvel film.
Yes. You know, my wife is not the biggest Marvel fan. She's not the biggest sci-fi fan. She's whatever. And I had gotten her up through Thor, I think. And that was the last movie, like the original Thor. And that was the last movie that she saw, and she didn't get through the rest of them. And she was entertained by the film. So she didn't understand a lot of the time travel because of Ant-Man. She didn't understand a lot of like what was going on with personalities and stuff like that. But she was, I think that says something about the movie, that she was sitting there, didn't fall asleep for 3 hours and was entertained by this film.
It was really nice. The Alamo Drafthouse, where I went to go see it, I love their pre-shows. Their pre-shows are always great. And they had everything that's happened in the Marvel universe until now recap for each phase. So that was kind of a good way to catch up somebody who maybe missed a movie here or there.
There was also a YouTube video that was like 38 minutes long that I showed my girlfriend, who had seen like 2 of the movies before this one. And Infinity War was not one of them.
Oh, God.
Yeah, we'll talk about the movie-going experience later. Just to finish off these numbers, here are a couple of tidbits with the box office. It was the highest Western movie debut in China at $330.5 million. That's in US dollars. Although they do start their box office on Wednesday versus the Thursday, Friday that we do in North America. It had the largest international debut at $859 million. It had an IMAX record of $91.5 million. It had the biggest 3D sales worldwide at $540 million. And Haley probably has a story of why that happened. And it had the widest North American release at 4,662 total screens running this film, with multiple AMC theaters in multiple cities running around the clock for 72 hours over the weekend to sold out shows. This was a big draw this past weekend, and I think we all agree it deserved it.
Yep.
All right, let's move on with the creative team behind the film. Lauren, who directed this movie?
This film was co-directed by a couple of people. You might have heard of them, the Russo Brothers. First, we have Anthony Russo. We're going alphabetical, who has 23 directing credits starting in 1994, including Welcome to Collinwood, which is a movie, 5 episodes of Arrested Development, Yumi and Dupree, another movie, Community, 14 episodes. Fun fact, there was an episode of Community that actually was basically responsible for getting them the job. Captain America, the Winter Soldier, Captain America, Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame. We also have Joe Russo, who has 25 directing credits since 1994. So 10 of Arrested Development, Yumi and Dupree, 2 of Animal Practice, 21 of Community, 1 of Agent Carter, Winter Soldier, Civil War, Infinity War, Endgame. Also producer for Community. Both of them were producers for Community. Both of them were also producers for Animal Practice. And acting-wise, he has cameos in Arrested Development, Yumi and Dupree, Winter Soldier, Civil War, and Endgame. We'll talk more about that later.
And Haley, who wrote this wonderful masterpiece?
All right. Few names going to come at you here. It was written by Christopher Markus, who has 13 writing credits starting in 2004, including The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Prince Caspian, and The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, Captain America, The First Avenger, Thor the Dark World, 17 episodes of our precious, beloved, dearly departed Agent Carter, Captain America Civil War, Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame, and he was also a producer for Agent Carter, and then had cameos in Captain America, a cameo in Captain America, the Winter Soldier. It was also written by Stephen McFeely. He also has 13 writing credits starting in 2004, also including the Chronicles of Narnia movies, Captain America, The First Avenger, Thor the Dark World, 1 episode of Agent Carter, Captain America Civil War, Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame. He was also a producer for Agent Carter, and he had cameos in The Winter Soldier, Infinity War, and Endgame.
We'll talk about the cameos in Endgame a little bit later. Now, who were the comics that were based on this, written by?
Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, and Jim Starlin.
Although I would probably argue there's a lot more in there as well, but those were the main 3 that were credited.
There's a lot of content in this film.
Yeah. Michelle, who produced this soon-to-be award-winning film?
There's a lot of names listed, but let's just face it, it's Kevin Feige's vision. It is impressive over the past 10 years, starting with Iron Man, a movie no one expected to take off, and somehow not only engaging geeks, but regular people, not only in America, but around the world, and crafting this saga that has culminated in a movie that made $1 billion in one weekend. We really just have to tip our hats to Mr. Feige, because really without him, none of this, because he took the reins and went with it, and successful. Amazing.
Shocking to me that Marvel is more of a moneymaker for Disney than Star Wars, but hey, you know, it's all really due to the material there, the acting, and the great vision of Kevin Feige. One other producer that I just want to take note of, and we all knew he was going to be accredited for it anyway, but James Gunn was listed as an executive producer. I think this is going to be important because he was brought back on for Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and I have heard multiple stories that he is crafting phase 4. So it is important.
Along with the Russo brothers.
Right. Well, he's the layout storyboard is James Gunn's vision, and then Russo brothers are going to take it, run with it. So I think that's important to note. So yes, lots of people behind this movie. There's one other person that I want to bring credit to, and that is the composer for the film, Alan Silvestri, who has 126 composing credits in TV and film. And I'm just going to run through a little bit of the highlights, just to give you an idea of how long Alan has been in the industry. He has composing credits for like 74 episodes of Chips. He did Back to the Future 1, 2, and 3. He did American Anthem, which is a gymnastic Olympic sort of movie, and the score to that just really gets me to this day. The Flight of the Navigator, Predator, for you gung-ho people out there. Who Framed Roger Rabbit, for the fun people out there. The Abyss, incredible adventure film. The Father of the Bride, a comic film. And then getting into the Marvel films, Captain America, the First Avengers, The Avengers, the 2014 Cosmos series, Ready Player One earlier last year, Avengers Infinity War, and Avengers Endgame. So glad that Alan could be around. It's great. If you compare Alan and like John Williams credits, John Williams is like at 221 or something like that. So this is roughly half, just over half of what John Williams has, but he's just been amazing in a lot of impactful films. So I just want to tip my hat to Alan and all the themes he was able to intertwine throughout the score of this movie here, Avengers Endgame, and really bringing it all together thematically. So for the previous Marvel Cinematic Universe films that we've talked about, we have gone through the cast list. Like each one of us would take one and we would go down and do it. The main cast character list is 73 characters long. We're not going to put you through that. However, there's a few that we want to actually talk about. So the Morgan Stark girl was played by Lexi Robbie, and her full name is Alexandria Rachel Robbie. And then the Barton kids were played by the Russo kids. So that's 2 shout outs that I want to make. Anybody else want to make any other shout outs?
Yeah. So first of all, I was thrilled to see Hiroyuki Sanada as Akihiro, who gets murdered. But Hiroyuki Sanada is a Japanese actor that I love. You can also previously see him in The Wolverine, not Origins Wolverine, not Logan, the one that takes place in Japan. James Darcy shows up as Jarvis. I may have screamed. And we also get a couple of community cameos. The Russos do this with all the Marvel movies they direct. This time, first off, we see Ken Jeong as the security guard at the storage facility. And we see Yvette Nicole Brown as a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent back in the, what was it, 70s, 1970, wherever it was.
I've heard a couple of reviews so far, and they geeked out a lot about James Darcy coming in as Jarvis. And it was clear to me, the way they were geeking out about it, that they had never seen Agent Carter, which is just a shame. But James Darcy was in Agent Carter. So, I mean,
speaking of the cast, do you think it's a really difficult decision every time they decide they're going to have Howard Stark in a film, whether they're going to get John Slattery or Dominic Cooper to do that particular age range?
I wonder if there's like a year cutoff where it's like, okay, before this year, we're going to get Dominic Cooper. After this year, we get Slattery.
Yeah, this was a tough one. But since all the interaction from Tony's perspective had been Slattery, I think that's why they went Slattery.
Mm. It's just funny. It's like, I wonder if they're like, okay, do we age up Dominic Cooper? Do we age down John Slattery?
Plus, he does have the photo of his dad, and it's, older Slattery. So here, I guess, from an audience visual language perspective, it makes sense to age down Slattery rather than age up Cooper.
I agree.
Just an incredible cast. I mean, there was more cast members in the 73 that were on the IMDb for credits, but 73 main actors. We were talking about this one point in time a few years ago, like 62 superheroes are going to be in this. Well, I mean, they kind of did it. So congratulations. Let's just get into the movie now. Avengers Endgame. Endgame. What's with that title? Haley?
This is the last game, guys. No more games. This is very clearly like the end of this epic story that's been told over the last 21 movies. You know, Doctor Strange told us we're in the end game now. And that's what this movie was. It was the culmination of all of the hours that we've put in as fans to enjoying this franchise.
I knew that going in. We've talked about it. We read about it every single week. I was not prepared for what happened at the end of this film. I even with the title, I knew. Everybody knew this was going to be the end, but we just didn't know how they were going to end it. And it was so impactful. And thank you for everybody again for not spoiling it. It was great to not be spoiled going into it, but wow, what a great movie. I do want to give Stan Lee a shout out here because Stan Lee, by everything that I've seen, heard, read, this was his last cameo. They haven't filmed anything else from him at this point in time. So this was his last one, and it was a couple of shout outs to him along the way too. The bumper sticker, enough said. Apparently that is something that he has said for a long time.
That's kind of his catchphrase other than Excelsior.
Yeah.
Yeah, he used to sign off on his Stan soapboxes in the 60s with that phrase.
And then he shouts out as he's driving past, "Make love, not war," as he's screaming past the base there. So,
okay, correct me. Somebody, not correct me, but somebody back me up. Do you think that the woman in the car next to him is supposed to be Joan Lee?
I would imagine so. Yeah.
It was just a really quick glance, and I'm going to have to go back and watch it again, but I'm pretty sure, since we have established that Stan Lee exists in the Marvel Universe, thank you, Captain Marvel, that I think that's supposed to be Joan Lee. And for that to be his last cameo, and considering that his wife died last year, I think that would be just incredibly sweet.
Now, I heard that they shot all 12 of his final cameos in a relatively short period of time, but I don't know when that was. So I don't know if Joan could have been alive then or not. I have no idea. So. Also, I want to say that the pre-roll, the Marvel pre-roll with all the comics and stuff like that, it reverted back to the Avengers for this movie rather than a Stan Lee montage like it was for Captain Marvel. I think that's the right call to make here. Michelle, what did you think about that? Did you think that was the right call to go back to Avengers, or would you like to have seen another Stan Lee tip of the hat?
No, this is, like I said, the end game, the culmination. It was right to go back to the Avengers.
I had some just general thoughts, and we're going to be talking about these throughout the podcast here, and I'm just going to list them out right here. So the intro was as devastating to everybody as the end to Infinity War, and we see it at Hawkeye's farm and ranch. We hear the explosions in the background. It really set the stage. So if you hadn't seen Infinity War, you got the feeling of exactly what was going on at a personal level. So it was very well done. The movie was not a typical Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. It was done at a slower pace. Yes, there was a ton of action, but it wasn't your typical hard-hitting Marvel movie. And I think at the end here, it was just more impactful to change it up at this point in time. I love the multiple trips down memory lane. We'll talk about all that later. And we get our first time travel in the Marvel Cinematic Universe with the time heist and the time jump. The time jump, that was huge in the theater. I mean, I heard gasp at that point in time in the theater. And then where does Marvel go from here? We're going to talk about that at the end, and then everything else that comes along the way. This is a lot of stuff, and we're probably going to go a little long, so we're just going to get right into it. So from the beginning, Tony Stark is in the Benatar, I think that's what the ship's name is called. It's a rocket ship. And he's there with Nebula. They have left the planet and they're trying to get home. The ship's been damaged. They can't get home. And I think it's a very touching moment that Tony is actually playing paper football with Nebula.
It was okay. Oh God, that moment gave me so many feels. You have Tony as this person that, last movie, he's like, oh yeah, I felt like I had this dream where we had a kid and he's been mentoring Spider-Man, and he's like, I lost the kid. And then here he is, he's like basically trying to not really parent Nebula, and here she is. She's been horribly abused her entire life. And we get a really, really big look into that in this movie. I already had a lot of Nebula feels going into this, and this just like stabbed it in and twisted that she's, I think I've talked about this before. There's the concept of the golden child and the scapegoat child in a lot of abuse families. And she was definitely the scapegoat child. And all she wanted to do was just have someone love her. And here he is, and he's just doing something. It's like, here, this is fun. And then when she gives him the last of the food, oh God, that was when I started. I mean, I was already tearing up with the Hawkeye's family. And then that was when I just full on started crying the first time.
I might have gone there myself, but I couldn't get the trailer pictures out of my mind of him going up in the suit with the rest of the Avengers. So I knew he survived.
Oh yeah, no, I knew he survived, but I mean, still, I'm a sucker for found families, and I am a sucker for basically Nebula is like an abused pit bull, and he's tentatively reaching out his hand, and oh God, I just so many feelings.
I think Nebula and Potts would get along just fine, actually.
They probably would.
Yeah.
I think she admires competence.
She does. So Haley, we have Captain Marvel coming in at like day 21 or whatever and saving them, basically grabbing the Benatar and getting it to Earth so that Tony can get oxygen and can survive. And we see the different look. Now, we talked about the fact that Captain Marvel is going to have a different look in this film, but it's the same look as Captain Marvel. So what'd you think about all that? Do you think they did that reshoots?
It's the same costume. Like, we knew the costume was set. They weren't going to change that. It was more like her hair and makeup that was changed.
I was fine with how they did that too, because they must have reshot the scenes at the front to mirror her look of what was, or I don't know if they reshot the whole scenes, but partial of the scenes to whatever, to bring her to her look that was from the 95 movie. I have no idea what she's going to look like the next time that she gets on screen, but I love the fact that she came in to say, and then she was like, I got this. You guys, you just take care of Tony. I'm going to take care of this. And that didn't quite work out.
Well, they were in fact entirely capable of defeating Thanos at that point. It was just too late.
Right. Because that's why I said it didn't work out, because it was too late. Thor, when this statement was made by Chris Hemsworth on the screen at both the showings that I went Thursday night and I went again Saturday night, there was a lot of laughs. Thor said, I finally went for the head. And he was able to kill a battle damaged Thanos. And not only was he battle damaged, but he was damaged by using the Infinity Gauntlet a second time. And I think what really hit him the second time is the Infinity Gauntlet did not want to have itself destroyed. So it inflicted some serious damage on Thanos. So I think that enabled them to kill him pretty easily.
The Infinity Stones are something like fundamental to the way the universe works at this point. So destroying them is going to have a pretty damaging effect.
And it almost seemed like he killed Thanos part because they couldn't go back and fix it because the stones were gone. And finally, just to put an end to Thanos.
Yeah, it was revenge, but it was, as we find out later, hollow. And I don't remember if I talked about it here when we talked Infinity War, but I've been rewatching it earlier this week, and you really see in that movie just how much on the knife edge of not okay Thor is. And with that, with the whole, should have gone for the head, with this, seeing it was basically all for nothing, Thor is not okay.
He was already starting to go to where the fat Thor, when we first see him at the Avengers compound. because he's got a beer out in front of him and he's eating like rolls or a pie or something like that. So, and he's the only one eating and stuff. So he had already kind of started on that path, and it was great that the Russo brothers kind of hinted at that at the beginning there. So after they kill Thanos in Thanos' garden, and whatever planet that was, I don't really think it really matters. Then we get the words on the screen, which I heard audible gasps in the theater. And they rolled out slowly too. 5 years later. I was shocked that there was nothing that was done for 5 years. That it was impactful, and it really set the tone for the rest of the movie.
I kind of figured it was coming because I remember seeing like set pictures and hearing rumors that there was like, well, does this movie take place immediately after? I've seen some stuff that makes it seem like there's going to be a time jump. What's going on? And I was like, oh, this explains it. Yeah, this is going to suck for them.
Yeah, I have to admit, I was 5, and then I thought months was going to come, and then years. I was one of the audible people going, "What?" in my theater.
Because you don't see, I mean, you know that nothing's happened for that 5 years. They haven't changed anything. And then you see the telltale signs of just wreckage that's around. You see Staten Island Liberty Island with the all the ferries just docked around there because there's nowhere else for them to be. I mean, there's not anybody using them. And you see the stadium, I think Met Stadium, City Field or whatever that's called, is just surrounded by all these cars that it must have, when Thanos snapped, it must have been like right at the beginning or right after the game got off, because you have all these cars that are just parked in certain ways, just trying to get out, whatever. And
so I was thinking about it, and the Black Plague in Europe, the one that started in like 1370, whatever, that one lasted 5 years and took out 50% of Europe's population. The worst year of it was like the third year of the plague, and that one took out 10 to 15% in 1 year. And you think about how much the culture in Europe changed because of that drastic, like all of a sudden everybody's gone. And with this, it's that, but in one single day.
And not only did people get dusted, I mean, there were people who were piloting airplanes who disappeared, and there would be people who are still alive on the airplane crashing and dying that way.
Yeah.
Or just car accidents. Like if half the drivers in the world disappeared while operating their vehicle, how many accidents were there at, 90 miles an hour on a freeway?
Somebody doing surgery, if the doctor disappears in the middle of surgery and the person they're operating on doesn't, the people around them might not know what to do to close them up. That person might just die on the table just because nobody knows how to close this, surgery. And there's so many incidental little things that you think about, like there's knowledge that's lost. Like the person who knows how to run a certain thing, the person who knows how to fix a thing, the person that knows even just the smallest part, and suddenly your garbage guy's gone. Suddenly the cooks at a restaurant are gone. Suddenly the person who picks vegetables are gone. And there's knowledge that's lost. There's labor that's lost. There's kids that are there without parents. There's babies that both of their parents disappear, and the baby's just going to starve to death. And half of the animals on Earth I realized throughout the whole, I didn't realize until the very end, but throughout the whole movie, you never hear any incidental animal sounds until the very, very end. And it was shocking when I realized it.
they did allude to it with Cap saying that he saw a pot of whales in the Hudson on the way over to the Avengers compound, and Nat was having none of that. It's like, I don't want to talk about that right now, but they did allude to it earlier on in the film.
Yeah, then that was when I first thought of it, was when he's like, but then I started thinking, but there's half the number of whales, and there's already such a small number of whales here on Earth to begin with. We lost half the mass of beetles and ants, which are the majority of the biomass of animals on Earth. We've probably lost whole species. The kakapo right now, it's a small endangered bird in New Zealand, one of my favorite birds. There are a total of 194 adults. This has been their best breeding season ever. And they've had something like 40 some babies hatch. But if half of those are gone, I mean, and if the people who know how to care for them are gone, those birds are going to be dead. I mean, there's so much, the conservation, the people who know how to work a zoo, the conservation efforts going on there, all these animals that no longer exist in the wild, but exist in zoos.
I was going to talk about this towards the end, but might as well talk about it now. There is no happy ending at the end. Yes, the people that were dusted get to come back, but people have died over the course of those 5 years, either initially with all those explosions that are going on in the background. If you go into Infinity War, you hear explosions in the background. If you watch the Hawkeye scene where his family disappears, there's explosions going on in the background. If you watch the Nick Fury disappearing, you see all the commotion going on and explosions and stuff going on. There are people dying right there, but then there are people that are dying in the next 5 years. So when people like Peter Parker comes back, that's a whole issue too. So his friends that have been left, they all graduated from high school and college now?
Yeah, so that's the weird thing. 5 years have gone by, and then you bring back everybody from the moment after they were snapped. So, like, the ages between people are very different now.
I mean, look at Cassie. That's a perfect example.
Oh, that was another heartbreaking scene. This girl, we last saw her as this little girl playing with her dad in Ant-Man and the Wasp, and suddenly she's in her mid-teens.
I've heard it said she's a 17-year-old girl, but I mean, it's somewhere around there, right? So he's impacted. You can see how impacted he is, Scott Lang, when he sees Cassie for the first time. And there is no mention of her mom, Cassie's mom, or the cop or anything. So, yeah. I mean, there's only so much you can do in one film that has 73 main actors. But I mean, some like Jarvis, they only get one line.
This is what fanfic is for. And speaking of which, I wanted to say it at the end, but this movie to me feels like fanfic in the best ways. I will talk about it later.
Right. So now let's talk about the fact that the universe has basically been saved by a rat. So we need to give this rat a name. Lauren, what would you name this rat?
The hero rat. Oh, geez. Splinter.
Okay, we can go with that.
I was going to say, is there a more heroic rat than Splinter? But if you follow hero rats on Twitter, there is a species called the Gambian pouched rat who actually have been trained they get specially trained to sniff out landmines because they are light enough to not trigger them. So they're excellent for removing landmines that have been left behind. And you can train them to sniff samples for tuberculosis. And they are excellent at diagnosing tuberculosis very quickly. So they are very, very good rats. I am always an advocate for rats.
Of course. I'm surprised you didn't want to be named Sithwitch.
I should have brought out Marlowe, my plague rat puppet, for this, but he's in the other room. So,
So Haley, I was a bit surprised. We all knew that Ant-Man was going to be the key to defeating Thanos, but I didn't know it was going to be through time travel.
Oh, you didn't? Because I thought that was like the biggest theory everyone everywhere had, was that they were going to time travel and save everybody.
I thought it was going to have something to do with the quantum realm and becoming really small. And like when he said that the Infinity Stones had been subjected to their atoms, that they were going to go and coalesce them from the atoms back up. That's what I thought.
But that's great, because now I get to talk about time travel mechanics, which is everybody's favorite part of this podcast, right?
It is actually.
So they did mess up the timeline, right? Like Loki got the Tesseract.
Yes.
Well, they created small branches.
Well, that's what the whole Loki TV show is going to be about, is basically Loki coming back into the timeline with the Tesseract. I don't know if it's going to be by his will or he's going to be forced to do it.
Also, Like they went to great lengths about talking about how they weren't trying to change the past, just fix the present by bringing everybody back. But they pulled Thanos out of, well, they didn't do it, but Thanos pulled himself out of the timeline before he did the snap. And then they killed him.
Well, one could say that that's a Thanos from a divergent timeline from when they removed, because it comes about when Nebula interacts with Nebula. So it could be an outside branch. So that Thanos could be the one that comes.
That's what's bothering me, though, is like they keep trying to establish the rules of time travel and time mechanics in their universe and then defying them.
I linked an article that tries to explain this. I linked, I think, 2 articles in the news that talk about the time mechanics.
Okay, so we can talk about that a little bit later.
But we can agree that, yeah, it's a little bit weird.
But the essence in the movie is they pull off a time heist, and they basically, even though they said they're not going to do it, they do Back to the Future it, because they do everything that's in Back to the Future too.
I love it. Every time they would make a reference to just all this stuff, and they're like, oh my God, you can't do that. And then they do it. And it's fun.
Like Captain America fighting Captain America and realizing that, yes, it is indeed America's ass. And then having, my favorite twist was he's in the elevator and I'm expecting a redo of the elevator fight.
Yep.
But instead he just goes, Hell Hydra, which is a great reference to the controversial comic book storyline, and also a reference to, you know, the previous movie and the fact that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.'s premise got blown up. It was a great little moment.
And it's moments like that little bitty reference to the, you know, the Hydra Cap storyline, or little bitty like old Cap, and just a couple of other things here and there. There's moments that are, you don't have to have read the comics to understand them. But if you did, you're kind of delighted a little bit more. And that's how I feel like references should be done in comic book movies.
Also, Sitwell was back. Congratulations, SP.
Yeah. You were the first person I thought of.
He lives in the past. So, I mean, I did watch, in my rewatch, I watched Winter Soldier, and rewatching that scene with a fresh set of eyes after all these years. Yes, you don't see the body, but yeah, you clearly see that he's being flung into a semi going 80 miles an hour the other direction. So yeah, I don't think he's alive anymore. So you win.
How many years did it take you to come to that conclusion?
I don't know. How long has it been? 8 years?
Not that long. I have no idea how long it's been since Winter Soldier came out.
No.
It can't have been 8, though. It's got to be like 5.
How weird is it that it's been 10 years since the Marvel Cinematic Universe like this started?
10 years.
Another tip of the hat to comic book fans was when Hawkeye went Ronin. Now,
yes,
I'm not a big Ronin character aficionado. I've just heard the term, and he basically became Ronin. To me, it looked like Oliver Queen in the Green Arrow.
Kinda.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of... Well, okay, so yeah, Ronin, for those who don't know, is Japanese for like a masterless samurai. At this point, Hawkeye is, again, effectively, he's untethered. He's gone full Punisher. You never go full Punisher. And while everybody else is we see after the 5 years later, everybody's trying. There's a little thing that could very well be a hint at possible Namor with the underwater earthquake. But we see Black Widow. She's trying her best to be Nick Fury, essentially. Not handling things well at all. She hasn't bothered re-dyeing her hair. It's just growing. She's letting the cracks show instead of being good at hiding her emotions like she always has been. We see Carol with the haircut that's a reference to more recent comics. We see her do a little glimpse at Rhodey, kind of a reference to the fact that they're dating in the comics. We see, again, Cap being Sam, essentially, leading a support group, because who better to know how it feels to have everything suddenly taken away from you and the world entirely changed than Cap. And Hawkeye just collapses, basically. He goes and he's just getting his therapy killing on and not doing so great.
Yep, going full vigilante, going against the law, but being very effective.
We get Professor Hulk.
So good. Okay, all the parts with Professor Hulk. First of all, the CG is so good. It's so good. It looks so much like Mark Ruffalo. So good. And all the parts where the part where they're in the diner and he's taking his picture with the kids, and then Scott Lang's like, "Do you want your picture with me? I'm Ant-Man." They're like, "No," and it just gets really awkward. I loved it. Just we get so many good character moments.
Yeah, the whole "I want my picture," or "Do you want your picture with Ant-Man?" Well, Captain America is sitting right there. So, I mean, if the kids are going to go for anybody's Captain America, although Captain America hasn't shown up in 5 years, so I get it. You know, he was helping people on a personal level. He wasn't helping people on a superhero level at that point in time. The funny lines from that, "Well, I'm wearing shirts now. How crazy is that?" I'm like, okay, if you want to go there, yeah, you can be crazy there.
Well, not just shirts, but also like sweaters. It's almost like, you know, the dad look with like the sweaters and everything. And then speaking of dads, we have Tony Stark actually being a dad. The cute little girl, and so him.
How many people thought that girl was going to get snapped out of existence?
Oh, yeah.
Like whatever they did to fix things was going to
I was so scared. The second she showed up, I was like, oh no. Because everybody else, again, has been stalled out. And he's the only one who's basically been constructively building a life. He's living out in the country with Pepper and Morgan. They have a garden. Pepper's reading up on composting.
What's new in composting?
Well, I fixed time travel.
They've moved on, and so many, like they mentioned, so many haven't.
I think Morgan is the singular reason why we're staying with the 5-year time jump, because
it is.
Tony was the one who did the last snap. He's the one who defined what they were going to do when the Hulk took his snap. It was Tony that said, "I don't want to lose what I've got so far, and hopefully I don't want to die trying." So Tony is responsible for keeping the 5-year jump.
He also, I realized later in the movie, foreshadowed basically what's going to happen, because when he lists his priorities, staying alive was the very last one.
And it was, and possibly, or whatever, it was preferably staying alive, but it wasn't a hard and fast thing.
Well, also, Stephen Strange told him, like, if I tell you what you have to do, you won't do it. So that was like, he's going to have to sacrifice his daughter. It's going to be terrible. We're all going to leave here sobbing. But he's still, like, in that mindset, he wouldn't have been willing to sacrifice himself because he'd had so little time with his daughter.
And what an impactful moment, by the way, for Strange to be lifting up his finger at the end to tell Tony this is the one, and his finger is shaking because, of course, his hands shake, right? His finger's shaking and telling him the one, and he does it anyway. So that was awesome. The time travel experiment, that was fun. That was the funnest thing in the movie for me, because Scott Lang pulled it off great. And he said, "Somebody peed my pants." I wasn't sure who it was. And then he got around to "and Mimi." And both theaters that I was in, they just cracked up at that.
Yeah, instead of pulling him through time, you've pulled time through him.
What got the biggest laugh in my theater, and also for me, is Potbelly Thor. Because that, I mean, I know he's depressed and down in the dumps and becoming an alcoholic and overeating and hanging out with Korg, playing too much Fortnite. And isn't it interesting that Fortnite is still around, 5 years from then? So
they don't have any new video game devs, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. But with him and Rocket, it was just really nice, funny moments in such an intense movie.
Okay, let's address Fat Thor real quick, because there has been a lot said about it. There was stuff that I personally liked. There's a lot of stuff I did not like. I really like, again, I mentioned that Thor is not okay. The parts where they showed, like, yes, he has PTSD. He is not handling this well. All the parts with his mom, everything where he can't handle them talking about Thanos. I really liked that. I really liked him hanging out with Korg and Meek. I really liked him realizing, hey, I'm not okay. I'm not who I thought I was going to be, but that's okay. As somebody who is not who I thought I was going to be, but that's okay. I related to that. But I also get why a lot of people are really angry. I'm not angry. I'm a little disappointed with how it was handled. But fat jokes, I feel like, are punching down. They're kind of too easy. And while already, I mean, it's already there as visible humor. You draw attention to it once, okay, not great, but whatever. You keep drawing attention to it. It's a cheap joke. And it's at the expense, it's at the expense of a lot of people in your audience who might be sensitive to that. And I think they're good writers. I just think they could have done better.
Yeah, I get the reason why that Thor is broken. I get why he's progressed to this in 5 years and everything. I just felt personally that it was a step back for the character after his development in Thor Ragnarok. I mean, he was really elevating himself to be the leader that he was meant to be. And then to totally revert in this movie, I don't know. I'm hoping that they rebuild Thor in the future, maybe not as the king of New Asgard, but as royalty in of himself. And right now he's just not there.
Well, I think that was the whole point of this movie, is that he never wanted to be king. He was never really suited to be a king. It's just, when your system of government is, a monarchy that you inherit by birthright, then that's what he had to be.
Yeah, and at the end of Ragnarok, it wasn't, everybody was looking at him. There's an empty chair, and everyone was looking at him to take the chair. It wasn't like, oh, yes, I am Thor. I am king now. Let me easily sit into this chair. You could tell that it was
like, well, I guess I have to do this now.
Reluctantly doing it. I have to do this. And I really like at the end where he realized that Valkyrie was the one who all this time had stepped up and actually is focused on Asgard. Thor is one thing about Thor.
Years.
Yeah, Thor, he's supposed to be king of Asgard, but let's face it, he really likes doing the whole Avengers thing and off doing stuff.
Yeah, and Valkyrie, having been in the position that he's in now, is the one who pulls herself out and steps up in this situation. Thor crumbles and realizes, this is not what I'm good at.
And really, I had no problem with him gaining the weight, because I think that makes sense. Like, if you drink yourself into a stupor for 5 years, you're going to gain weight. That's how beer works. But the jokes are where the problem was.
Yeah. I mean, again, Chris Hemsworth is a funny guy.
Yeah. I really liked the visual gag, though, after, 3 movies of shirtless buff Chris Hemsworth scenes, to have it look like that's what they were going to give you, and then have it be the beer gut instead was pretty funny.
That was pretty funny.
Yeah, like that part, I do agree, like the other fat jokes weren't, but once it got off of that, and then you've got Rocket and Thor. I could watch the Thor and Rocket, buddy cop.
Which it looks like we're getting. Please let that be Guardians 3. Please let Thor be in Guardians 3.
I think he's going to be.
Please.
They have to at least reference him in Guardians 3, if anything else.
That was a fantastic team up. Thor and Rocket. It's, again, just as Gwen's dad pointed out in the chat, you get a lot of unexpected team ups in this movie. And I think they all worked out really well. It's, again, very fanfic-like. You pair up characters that you haven't seen previously and see what happens.
I wasn't too happy with how Star-Lord was portrayed in this film. I mean, he's basically said, okay, he's an idiot by singing, and nobody else could hear it because he was wearing headphones on. And then everything that happened once he got undusted. What are we going to call that anyway? It's not reanimated.
Undusted works for me. Unsnapped. But the thing is, with that scene, when it's coming on, I'm like, oh my God, I just realized they're going to see all that scene that we saw with the music, but with no music. And he's going to look ridiculous. And then it happened, and I was screaming laughing because I've been that person, just kind of, I used to work in a lab. I used to have my headphones on. Sometimes I'd have music on. I'd be dancing around my lab, and then somebody would walk in. And I'm like, and I look like an idiot. Thank you.
That is specifically why I listen to podcasts at work instead of music, because I know I have a tendency to sing along, and nobody needs to hear that.
And I realized with the screen time that was allotted to Chris Pratt that they couldn't really do much with his character other than for him to really go through the motions. So I get that. I am looking forward to Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and see where they go with that character, if Thor comes with them or not. And one last thing about Thor, no Sif again. I mean, Jamie is off doing her own thing, but it would have been nice to have a cameo for her, especially in A-Force or something like that, but we just didn't get it.
Another thing about Star-Lord seeming like an idiot, it's because we had the Gamora that first met him that thought he was an idiot, and Nebula, who still thinks he's an idiot. Like, of course, those two think he's an idiot.
Yep.
I loved her line about you either had him or a tree, and you picked him.
And it's clear she thinks she made the wrong choice.
And I love that Mantis is so into Thor and Star-Lord having a knife fight.
Wait a minute.
Oh my God.
Not Mantis, the chick with the antenna.
The third Guardians movie is basically going to be the Notebook in space.
Also, I wanted a Nebula Mantis scene.
Yes, same. I ship it hard.
We might get it. I mean, they're both on the ship together now, so we'll see.
Like, I know it was a busy movie. There was a lot going on. 73 main characters, whatever. But I am the fan that must be serviced.
Same. No, I ship it. I write it. It's fine. It's fine.
It's Guardians of the Galaxy 3. They're going to be in the ship. They're going to fall in love. It's going to be great.
Here's the
Yes.
thing. I thought they fell in love before. I think we had this conversation when we watched Infinity War. But there was like a quick scene.
Where she's like, call Mantis.
Yeah. Anyways.
I maintain.
We get the figuring out of where the Infinity Stones are going to be throughout history and where they would have spots to interact with it, going back and forth, and the Cap speech of whatever it takes. I think
He's really good at that.
Anybody else have the Imagine Dragons song in their head?
it allowed the plot to move along, and they did it well, but I don't think it was that pivotal in the movie other than Cap's speech. And then Natasha, when she gets up on the platform, says, "I'll see you in a minute." That's the last thing she says to everybody. And that's,
God.
the second time I watched the movie, I saw that. I was like, oh.
Okay. Did anybody else think the scuffle between her and Clint went on a little bit too long?
Okay. I was laughing.
I was on the verge of laughing, and you should not be laughing in that scene.
It was reminding me a bit of Looney Tunes. Because, okay, she stuns him. He shoots at her feet with an explosive arrow. It's this just, no, I'm going to kill myself first. I'm going to kill myself first. Race to the cliff. And of course, then once they're hanging off the edge, then I start tearing up. But before that, it was really funny. And me and my friend were laughing, and I leaned over to her and I'm like, I feel really bad laughing at this.
So in order for that whole thing to work, I have not heard or seen this talked about yet. Maybe I'm just barking down the wrong tree, but under the rules of getting the soul stone, you have to lose what is most dear to you, not just who's there with you, but most dear.
Of everything that's left, they are most dear to each other.
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, Natasha is the one that goes to Japan and actually gets through to Clint. He's angry at her for giving him hope, but she is the one that is able to bring him back.
Plus, I know Clint has a family, but Clintasha forever. Come on, guys. For real.
So I was just worried that they were elevating Natasha above Clint's family, and I think Clint would say his family is above Natasha, but
Right,
you're
but-
right.
Yeah, but
he
they're
didn't
dead.
have,
This is all that's left.
yeah, he didn't have his family around. So yeah. We just have to give a shout out to Natalie Portman. It was great to see her again on screen. We doubt whether or not there's been new shots, and they could have used stock footage of that, but she did go to the premiere, so I don't know, she's cashing a check or not.
As I said in our pre-show, I think it was the only ticket she could get.
Yeah, I mean, if I had a chance of being part of the biggest movie ever, I would want to take it.
I
Personally.
do think there was maybe one or two shots that looked like they could have been just, hey, we need you for like an hour. Is that cool? Pickup shots.
I think they would have had a funny scene if they could have gotten her back.
Well, I think they might have actually filmed it because I think back in the day we discussed like the first cut was something like 8 hours long, and they're like, yeah, we can't do this. So I think there might have actually been more with her.
Because I was kind of hoping for a scene where, like, she sees Rocket and he convinces her that, oh, Asgardians just have, raccoon doctors. I need a blood sample.
Oh, that would have been great. I am glad we got more Rene Russo.
Yes. Oh, again, the scenes with her and Thor were so good. I was crying.
Yeah, and when she said, "You're here to fix your future, not mine," like she knew.
She was raised by witches. She told him.
And Captain America had to interface with all these people again. I mean, or at least be in the same spaces and whatever. I mean, I would like to see that, like the behind the scenes of Chris Evans just sneaking around, trying to avoid everybody in a Back to the Future 3 or 2, I guess, sort of thing. That would have been funny to see. So, of all the trips down memory lane, what is your one favorite that you saw during the film? Lauren, do you have one favorite?
Yeah, the moment after the "I'd like a drink, please," "I'd like that drink now," with everybody in Avengers Tower or Stark Tower.
Stairs. Hulk hates stairs.
Again, when I say this felt like fanfic in the best way, it's that moment after thing. It's okay, let's stop posing. They take the stairs, Sitwell and the rest of the strike team shows up. Pierce shows up. You have that weird little scuffle. It's so fun.
Not only that, but before then, you get the heroes moment, the Avengers heroes moment of them down in the street too.
Yeah. Oh God. Again, and Professor Hulk being like, and has
he's
to take
got
off his
to
shirt.
pretend to be rampaging Hulk.
Yeah, smashing kind of half-heartedly.
Smash.
So good. It's so good.
Michelle, what was your one favorite?
On your left.
Yeah.
I lost count about how many times. I think that should be a drinking game or eating chocolate game because I don't take alcohol, so I'll be eating chocolate. When anybody says, because it wasn't just one person. Like I heard Tony say it and somebody else and a couple other times when "on your left" happens.
A lot of key sayings were said throughout the film. "On your left" was my favorite too. Haley, what was your one favorite go back in time moment?
Oh, go back in time moment. Seeing Haley Atwell again.
Again, I started crying.
In New Jersey?
What?
In New Jersey?
The first time we saw her on the base.
Yes, in New Jersey. Yeah.
Okay, that was in New Jersey. I also was really happy to see Yvette Nicole Brown. I love her.
Yeah, that was fun. And I'm so glad they just didn't turn it into a goofy chase. First of all, I don't think they had time for it. And second of all, I think it was...
There might be a longer version of that bit of the movie where there is a long goofy chase. And I can't wait to watch it on the Blu-ray.
Yeah, I wonder how long the long cut is going to be. Is it going to be 5 hours, 6 hours, 3.5 hours? I don't know. We'll see when we get there. I would say that my favorite part was the original Avengers as well, but it was when... It's either the elevator scene or when Pierce, Robert Redford, unannounced cameo, you see Robert Redford, you also see Hank Pym, but I mean, Robert Redford, that was the one as Secretary Pierce, and he played the dick that Secretary Pierce is the whole time. So, I mean, it was just fun seeing that again throughout the film there. So we do get the Infinity Stones. Tony makes a new gauntlet out of one of his gloves, and they decide Hulk is going to be the one to take the snap because of the gamma radiation burst. And along those lines, they have two huge gamma radiation bursts within a short period of time on the planet surface. I think there's going to be some mutants that evolve from this.
The M word.
Yeah, there you go. Then you get Thanos, who has arranged with his Nebula, to come back and, basically destroys the Avengers compound, which is even more impactful when you think of Tony's death, because there's, who's going to fund the compound or whatever the event, if the Avengers come back together, who's going to fund their spot and stuff like that, because everything that Tony's done is gone. Yeah, Pepper could, and that would be kind of fun. I'd be fine with that, actually. But then you get the fight. And the really big fight, I think, that everybody had been wanting was Thor, Captain America with his shield, and Tony Stark going after Thanos. And this is the I'm in charge, large, and I'm at the peak of my power, Thanos. And as we see, the only thing that gets Thanos in the end isn't any of them fighting him. It's the fact that they trick him with the Infinity Stones, but they go after him, and you get all the fun stuff. So you get Captain actually picking up the hammer.
Okay, right there, everyone in my theater started yelling. I actually screamed. I was so happy.
Yeah, my crowd, we started cheering and applauding.
That was my favorite single moment of the movie right there.
In order to make that happen, you had to have Thor go back to his time to get the hammer, because the hammer's done. The hammer's destroyed. So he had to get the hammer from the past. He had to bring it forward, and it had to be used there. And then Cap at the end had to bring it back. So it wasn't part of a time issue later. But yeah, that was amazing. I mean, you had big stuff going on. Like you had Thor funneling all his lightning power through Stark, and Stark's suit going, multiplying the power and going to Thanos. You had...
It was like all these things, like combo moves we'd seen them do in other films, and we saw them do it for the first time. It was like, oh, wow. And now it's part of their repertoire. And he built a suit that's specifically designed to funnel Thor's lightning into his energy beams.
So cool. We see that, and we finally see Rescue show up.
Oh, no. Okay, so the Captain America holding the hammer was my second favorite moment in the movie. My favorite moment in the movie was when all the female heroes
A-Force
charged across. Yes.
At that moment, I yelled, "It's effing A-Force!"
I know. And I saw that it was, the huge army come along, and I'm going, come on. And then finally, Doctor Strange brings Wakanda to the fight. It just wasn't like just bring a few heroes. No, it just he brought Wakanda.
It's all of Wakanda. It's
all the Asgardians.
All the Asgardians. Oh, God. Where did Valkyrie get a flying horse? Did she just order one from another planet? I don't know. I hope
There's a Bill and Ted scene after this where it's like, okay, we have to remember to go back and get the Pegasus before it dies and then put it back.
I maintain it's from an alien planet. She asked Carol to go get her one, and Carol's like, sure thing, comes back with a flying horse.
Or Hulk could have snapped it back into existence.
Yeah, whatever. But it's like they kept pulling back with the camera, and another character would step into the frame. It was like, oh my gosh, this is so great.
All of the other Doctor Strange people whose names I'm blanking out on.
All the wizards?
Yeah, all
Sorcerers.
the wizards.
Yeah, the only thing that was wrong with the A-Force was that... And it
Nothing,
wasn't
hush
wrong.
your mouth.
What's that?
Nothing, hush your mouth.
Was that Natasha couldn't be a part of it.
Yep.
That hurt.
I was a little sad we didn't get to keep a Gamora.
I don't know if we got to keep Gamora or not.
She wasn't on the ship.
Yeah, well, they said she ran off, and they're going to try to find her, and I think that's the plot of Guardians 3. Like I said, I think Guardians 3 is basically going to be the Notebook in space.
The search for Gamora?
Yes.
So that could be them going and working the Soul Stone specifically, because those two are in the Soul Stone right now. So you could get them out, or at least one of them out. So that could be a way.
We don't know that that's a thing that could possibly happen. Also, doesn't that Gamora have to be back in the timeline for anything to work?
Well, I mean, you have Thanos that's dead.
So I had this thought after, that maybe Tony's snap didn't kill them. It just returned them to their place in the timeline.
Yeah, maybe.
That could have happened. Go back to where you come from.
Yeah, only the Russo brothers will be able to tell us eventually. Yeah.
I can't wait for the big, long interview where they explain the movie to us.
And I have to admit, when the fighting was going on, I'm like, okay, there's that person. And I'm going, come on, girl, where are you? Where are you? And then finally Captain Marvel shows up, and I'm just like, there you are. Unfortunately, there were people beside me and stuff who were also Marvel fans who didn't mind. There was the guy beside us who was also a big geek and geeking out as much as we were. So we didn't get the whole be quiet sort of thing.
I screamed with the A-Force thing, me and my best friend who's sitting next to me, and some girl a couple seats over reached over, tapped her on the shoulder, and was like, calm down. And we were like, no,
The movie etiquette in both theaters I went was far the best movie etiquette that I have ever seen in recent years. It was amazing. Most people were just captivated by most of the film because it was a slower paced film for the most part, but you still had the laughter, you had the gas at the appropriate place. I was in a packed Saturday night in a major theater with, I have no idea how many, like 300 people, maybe 3 to 4, maybe 500 people. One person brought their young kids, and they happened to be 3 rows behind me, and they were traipsing up and down the stairs the entire time, going back to the bathroom or going to get something, and nobody was going with them. So I was like, I don't know about this, but they were making a little noise, and only the people that were in their party told them to shush. Nobody did. So it was a good movie going experience, and I'm grateful that I had those 2 experiences. And we missed one of the big moments, and that is when all these superheroes come through the portals and they're facing Thanos' army, and Cap, who has been devastated, he's been cut at the leg, his shield is halved, and he's going to face for the final time this entire army in front of him and probably get killed. And all these Avengers come through, and the on your left moment from Sam, the hey Cap, on your left.
So good.
Yeah, and you get all these people lining up, and then Cap is the one who gets to say Avengers Assemble. Finally, for the first time in 10 years.
And it's like all of them.
I loved how Shuri, she didn't have a line, but her expression on her face was like, I am pissed and all of you MFers are going to die.
Yeah, okay, so for a lot of the minor characters, there's not a lot to do or say. Because let's face it, this is the end for the original 6 Avengers, particularly Iron Man and Captain America. So the movie's going to focus on them. But we get some amazing face work. We get some good small moments. We get Captain Marvel's Chekhov's blasting through a spaceship. We get her headbutting Thanos, which was, Thanos headbutts her. We get a thunk, and she doesn't even budge. It's amazing. And the only way he can neutralize her is taking the Power Stone out of the gauntlet and punching her with it. So cool.
You got key members of the Avengers which were escorting the gauntlet. You had Hawkeye at first, and Clint, if it wasn't for Clint, the gauntlet would have been with Nebula the entire time, and the other Nebula and Gamora too. But you had Clint, and then it changed to Black Panther, and then from Black Panther it went to Peter Parker, and from Spidey it went to Carol, and then Carol got it all the way back, but then the van blows up, so they can't do another time thing.
Yeah, it's just, again, that fight scene. I was thinking about it after the movie. It did not feel like a 3-hour movie to me. It flowed, I think, very well. That was probably a really long fight scene. I was very invested. So I'm just here like, go, 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 go.
Yeah, I was amazed. It did not, both times that I saw the movie, it did not seem like 3 hours. Well, then you get to the Tony Stark final scene where he gets to be Iron Man, which was very impactful. The I am Iron Man snap. And then that's it. Then the fight's done. And so is Tony, unfortunately, because of the gamma radiation. And that last moments between Rhodey and Pepper and Peter were done very, very well. The only thing that, as a married person, that I would say is she didn't get to say I love you, but she didn't have time to say I love you. She just wanted Tony to know that everything was done, everything was fine, and that it was okay for him to be at peace finally. For the first time since Avengers.
That's never been part of their relationship, though. They don't really say I love you to each other.
I think when she said, we will be all right, was her saying, I love you and goodbye. It wasn't, I think that saying like, I love you and goodbye would be not the way. I think Tony would want to know, we will be all right.
Yeah, because Tony's somebody who, since we have seen him, since all of this started in Iron Man, is somebody who's like, I need to get stuff done. I need to do this. I need to protect this. I need to be proactive. I need to do this. He just does not stop. And even when he has that little moment of peace that we saw after the snap, and he's like, I think I can stop. And she's like, yeah, but can you? And here, when she's like, we've got this, it'll be all right, you can rest. That is her saying, like, I love you. We've got this. You don't have to worry.
I agree with all that. And as I said, I think it was well done. And that was only a possibility that I had with the whole thing.
I feel like their love language is not so much words and is a lot more acts.
Right.
Yes.
I don't know, for anybody that's been an even remote fan of the films, I don't know anybody that had a dry eye when it came to that scene. And the following funeral scene, it was too emotional for everybody. It was one of the things that I'm glad I wasn't spoiled going in because of the way it happened and everything.
I really thought Cap was going to die. The whole time going in, I really thought that Cap was going to die. And then about halfway through the movie, I realized, oh, no, it's going to be Tony. And Cap's going to go back to the past and stay there.
I as soon as I saw Tony's daughter, I was like, oh, Tony's dying.
You just didn't know. I've heard people say either way. And going in, I thought that maybe Cap or Tony would die or both. But I wasn't prepared for it at the end because of the journey that took us on in the previous 2 hours and 30 minutes or however long it was.
Yeah. Talking about it with Scott and with my best friend, I feel like sadly, there was not another end for Tony because he physically cannot stop. His brain does not let him stop. And he went from being, the person, the guy that wouldn't, lay over the wire, he would cut the wire, to the guy who, this is the only chance we have. This is what he's going to do. Because he finally found something that was more important than anything. And it's his daughter. He had all that baggage with his own parents. He's made his peace with it. And then Steve, you have him, a very tragic character, here from the future. Everything that he knows is gone. Every time we see him, there's that little hint of melancholy to him. And he finally went from being, absolutely selfless guy to finally doing something for himself. And those, I think, were just kind of the perfect ends for these two iterations of these characters.
Yeah, well, and both of them, when they were introduced, they were the only ones that could do the things that they were doing. And by the end of this movie, we see that there's a lot of people who are capable of protecting Earth and protecting the galaxy at large. And both of them finally get their rest.
So you do have the wonderful funeral scene at the cabin, at the Stark cabin, and you get to see the lineup of all the main cast and characters throughout everything, including Iron Man 3 Harley, the little kid.
So who else had to look up, wait, who's that guy?
Yeah, I had no idea. I'm like going, who is that kid?
I remembered he was going to be in it. And I remember people were thinking, oh my God, it's going to be Iron Lad. We're going to get the Young Avengers. No, he just shows up randomly for the funeral. I imagine Tony's been sending him Christmas cards.
I just seen Iron Man 3, so Harley was still in front of my mind. So as soon as I saw the kid, I was like, okay, that's Harley. It wasn't until later, though, that I found out it was done by the same actor. Just all grown up now.
So we walked out of that theater and, me and my friends were talking about the movie. And I had one friend there who had seen all the movies like I had and was a big fan. And we were both like, who was that kid at the end? Like, they hung on him like he was just as important as everybody else that we were seeing. And neither of us had any memory at all of him.
When you watch that scene again, because I think I'm the only one that has seen the movie 2 times,
yes,
you are not overcome by the emotions. And then you're looking at all the people as the camera pans back and forth. It is a great lineup. It's the film version of that 10-year photo that they took and the 10-year anniversary. And that 10-year anniversary photo means a lot more now than it ever did before because of who we lost along the way now. So we do have Cap going back. He gets his happy ending with Peggy, which is great. Does this retcon Agent Carter?
Again, I have an article that addresses this.
Okay, here's the thing. We never know who she marries. So she probably gave him a fake name. She's Peggy Carter. She probably gave him a fake identity, blah, blah, blah. And then when the time comes, he's probably telling her, it's like, okay, look, I'm going to be coming out of the ice. When you see me, you have to pretend that we weren't together.
Stefan Rogers.
Yeah, the other thing with that is we didn't get to see Sharon Carter, Emily Van Camp, and the only place I think we would see her would be at the funeral scene at the end with Agent Hill and Ross, but we don't see her. And I think it's good that we don't see her because then Cap's not conflicted at all. He's clear-headed to make his choice, and I think it's the right choice for him to go back with Peggy.
That always felt forced to me. Just never felt right.
Even in the comics when they brought her along, it's creepy because it's like, oh, I liked this relative because they changed the relationship, but I like this relative of yours and I'm too old for her, or she's too old for me now, so you'll do.
I would like to see Emily Van Camp back in the MCU, but like Sif, I think it's done. I don't think she's coming back. So the Cap passing off his shield to Sam has a lot of dimensions to it. There's a time dimension to it, and then there's who he passed it off to dimension to it. Lauren, you want to talk about the who? Cap passed off the shield to Sam.
Yes. Oh, okay. That part made me very emotional.
Well, he's passing off the shield, so did it go to the right guy?
I think so. Again, me and my friends, we were talking about this after the movie. I'm really happy to get Sam Cap. I love Bucky Cap, but in this cinematic universe, I think that Sam Cap would pay off a lot more. And again, we've gotten comparatively little with Bucky.
Also, I feel like Bucky is tired of fighting at this point.
Yes. Absolutely. And Sam, he knows, he's gotten to know Sam. They've been friends for, at this point, like many years. And he knows Sam's a good guy. He's got a good heart. And he has, let's face it, a lot less baggage than Bucky.
I don't know if Sam is the same leader as Steve. So if they do redo the Avengers, I don't know if Sam's the one in charge or not.
Well, we've already established that I think Carol is going to be the Captain America.
If she stays on Earth?
The figure. Well, no, the Russo Brothers, Kevin Feige has established that the next phase, Carol's going to be kind of the leader of the Avengers.
My only concern with that was if she was going to be around or not. So if she's going to be around, that's great. Yeah. Haley, let's talk about the time dimension. S.H.I.E.L.D.
What about it?
Okay, where did it come from? Because he's got a shield that's destroyed. And then he comes back with a good shield.
Because Tony made him a new one.
No, that was the shield that
got destroyed.
No, Tony took that shield at the end of Civil War.
Oh, that's right. I don't know. He was working with Peggy Carter, who was the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. Maybe they got some more vibranium and made a new one.
That's the only thing I can think of.
No, wait. When he went back in time, he had a shield with him. So somebody at some point yes, he did. He had the hammer, he had his shield, and he had the stones.
He just had the briefcase and the hammer. I looked the second time.
Okay, I've only seen the movie once, so I don't remember. But I feel like he could either have, gotten it somehow from Peggy, because she was director of S.H.I.E.L.D., or they have a relationship with Wakanda now, so there's a lot of vibranium available. So it could have come from there.
That was the only thing that I thought of, that it wasn't actually the original shield, because Cap would have had to have the shield back in order to have all these battles and everything, just like he took the hammer back to Thor. And the only way around that is there's another shield.
That's all right. It was more a symbolic passing of the torch, like you're the one that carries the shield now.
It's going to be a tough world without Tony Stark, because all his toys and everything. So we'll just see how that goes. There are some replacements both in the comics and on screen. You have Shuri in Wakanda, and then in comics you have Ironheart as well. So we'll just see where they go in the next phase. I don't think we're going to see Iron Man on screen for a while. I'm more worried about the toys that Iron Man brought to the table for the rest of the Avengers. A lot of talk was given before the movie to the restroom breaks, and I think we've all successfully negotiated that we all stayed in the theater for the 3.5 hours that the movie took.
Yep. I had a friend who took a break right before Thor and Rocket arrived on Asgard and didn't really miss much.
So the breaks that were actually given to us by a spoiler-free article said at the beginning of the San Francisco card, at the beginning of the New Jersey card, and then when they have lunch with Hulk. I say the New Jersey card is a bad place to take a break because of everything that is going on with Tony Stark. That's a Tony Stark moment, and you need to have that to go forward in the film. But if you miss the Hulk gate and you have to go to the bathroom, I don't know when you go because...
Well, if you took the New Jersey one, like, you don't miss the whole scene because it's a pretty long run. The beginning of it is just them kind of sneaking around.
I guess you miss Cap maybe taking the pen particles, which you might question how Cap is able to go back or whatever. But aside from that, it seems to be fine. All right. You want to talk about any final thoughts with the movie itself, Lauren?
Like I was saying earlier, feels like fanfic in the best way, partially because there are so many good, long character moments that linger on, hey, we are concentrating on the after effect of what happened. You don't get that with a lot of superhero movies in particular because the focus is on, hey, we need to move on to the next thing. Because this has a longer runtime, there's a little bit more time to stretch that out. So we get these moments of people dealing with their trauma. And again, we get the behind the scenes look at some of the things that happened in previous movies. Also a very fanfic thing. We get the end caps of the movie, what people are doing after everything's all said and done. Again, a very fanfic thing. And it feels very emotionally full for a movie, for a tentpole movie, for a Marvel movie, for a superhero movie, for an action movie. And as somebody who just loves that just juicy emotional stuff, I love it.
Haley, any last thoughts?
It was really, really good. That's about it for my last thoughts. I really enjoyed it, and I really want to see it again, and I really want to rewatch all the other movies.
Michelle?
It did not feel like a 3-hour movie. Also, my mother loved it. She cried as well. She laughed. She cried. I cried not only from like when Tony died, but I was crying like halfway through the credits and such. So that's how long I was crying. And she actually had to talk me down a little bit because I was the one driving. I was just surprised with just how emotional it was, how funny it was. To me, this is one of the best ones that they've done because it really had everything. And I'm just like, gosh, I wonder if they can stick the landing. And okay, we're having to hand wave a little timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly stuff, but really, they stuck the landing.
I actually just had another last thought because of Michelle talking. Remember how excited we got in the first Avengers movie when we saw them all brought together for the first time and we saw 6 superheroes on the same screen? And then just multiply that times, 12? And that's what this movie was.
It was amazing, and they did it right. And I think one of the things is that they didn't have to lead up to it. They didn't have to create everything in this movie. They did have 21 movies leading up to it to get to where it is. Jon Favreau had a great moment with Morgan at the end about the cheeseburgers, which went back to 2008. So yeah, I've gone out and I've gotten cheeseburgers the last few days for lunch, just in honor of that. I think that's going to probably have to end tomorrow. But his cameo, Jon Favreau's cameo in Far From Home, makes a lot of sense now. It's not Tony Stark because it is just him left, basically. And I'm okay with him and Aunt May having a thing. Yeah, that's fine.
Well, in the comics, he ends up with Pepper for a while.
Yep.
I don't know how I'd feel about that.
If he's playing a surrogate father for her daughter now, and they are spending a lot of time together, they both had this relationship with Tony. They're consoling each other in their grief.
Okay. We'll just see how it evolves on screen.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's necessarily something we'll ever see.
Again, fanfic. And yeah. So speaking of food, I too had cheeseburgers this weekend. I also, thanks to the Alamo Drafthouse, had the Awake Until the Endgame cocktail with a bowl of chicken shawarma salad.
I would have, but, I was unceremoniously removed from the Alamo Drafthouse.
Right.
Not for anything she did. We should clarify.
Yeah, it wasn't. She went above and beyond to find a time to go see the movie. And then the last thing I just want to say is, when I saw the movie the first time, I'm like, there's a lot of ships flying around. I wonder if Zephyr 1 is one of those ships. There still might be a Zephyr 1 in that final battle scene. I did not see it. I watched the second time specifically. Whenever there was a ship floating around, I tried to see if it was Zephyr 1 or not. And there's just too much going on. I can't tell you yes or no at this point in time. So Zephyr 1 could have been there, and our Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. could have been in the battle. Guys, where does Marvel go from here? I mean, there's a lot. Who's going to lead the Avengers? Do we need the Avengers anymore? I mean, what's going on?
Space.
The final frontier.
Exactly.
It's interesting that you mentioned that. Did you stay for the credits?
Yes. Well, some of them. Then I really had to pee, so I left about halfway through.
So they did the Star Trek 6, was it, thing where all the actors signed their names?
Yes, I watched that.
Yeah. And to my knowledge, that's the only other show that's done the signing the names was Star Trek. So that was fun to see. But okay, space. Anything else?
A-Force. I can handle all Lady Avengers, or mostly Lady Avengers with Sam in there.
Bad guys aren't going to go away.
Matter of fact, this might have created bad guys.
Exactly. This might have created bad guys. Space is still there. There's going to be fallout from the return of everybody from the unsnapping. There's a lot of potential there. They just need to sit down and write it.
I think they already have a sketch of what's going on, so see what happens in the end there.
Yeah, just get that 5-year plan rolling.
No, they plan 10 years at a time, apparently.
Did they really have this 10-year end in mind when they were doing the Avengers post-credit scene?
I really doubt it.
Yeah.
No, I think this idea probably came around after Joss Whedon left.
Yeah, I feel like this probably came around sometime around Guardians.
I mean, they would have had to have they were dropping hints at it the entire time.
They knew they were going to do the Infinity Stones and the Infinity Gauntlet. They knew. Okay, so I would say, when did we see the first stone? The Tesseract. So in the first Avengers movie, I think since then they knew that the end of this saga of stories was the Infinity Gauntlet. But that the characters were going to develop this way, I don't think they knew that.
I look forward to what's coming in the future. I do lament the fact that the Avengers that I have come to know and love are over. I have retired. I wore my Captain America jersey, geeky jersey, to the first showing. I wore my Stark jersey to the second showing. I got comments on both, and I think at this point they are both retired, and I don't know if I'm ever going to wear either of them in the future. We'll see if there happens to be a cameo. Oh, Tony Stark was leaving video messages along the way. So we might get some Robert Downey Jr. cameos in the future in the form of video messages to different people. That's something I thought of that could happen. And of course, Cap is still around. It's old Cap, so you could see Chris Evans around as well. We usually go through the trailers that we saw. I didn't see that many because the movie was so long. Is there any trailers that you guys want to say this was amazing to see on the big screen? Michelle?
X-Men Dark Phoenix. I'm actually looking forward to it. I'm hoping... Look, the cartoon did it right. I don't really think this movie is actually going to best that. but I'm hoping that it can erase that third X-Men movie. So I'm hoping that
you're talking about.
Yeah, it's a thing that doesn't exist. So I'm hoping that that film works.
It was great to see Chris Hemsworth in the Men in Black trailer, international trailer, because it wasn't Fat Thor. So I knew that he still has his sleek body. Lauren, was there anything that you saw that you loved from a trailer perspective?
Other than Dark Phoenix, the Star Wars Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
I just, you guys.
Seeing that one on the big screen was pretty impressive.
You know, I saw it in the stadium with 10,000 other people at Star Wars Celebration. So it's cool every time I see it, by the way. And I'm just wondering, do they time actors when they try out for these adventure action films, sci-fi films, on how fast they can run a 40?
It would not surprise me if that's part of their training.
Yeah. I'm kind of surprised. Did you not see the Godzilla King of Monsters trailer?
Yeah, I'm just not a big Godzilla fan.
I did. Now, when you put that on the list, it's like, oh yeah, I saw that too.
There was only like 3 trailers before the one at the Alamo.
No, I saw 2 sets of trailers. I saw plenty of trailers.
So Godzilla was not in the Thursday night showing that I went, but it was in the Saturday night showing that I went. Haley, was there any specific trailer?
For me, it was the Star Wars one. Also, my girlfriend was very excited about Toy Story.
Oh, so you got the Toy Story trailer.
Yeah, also, Aladdin. I think it looks better than the first look we got.
It actually looks pretty decent.
Yeah, I saw the Lion King trailer a couple of times, and it's just good to hear James Earl Jones's voice still being a part of that. So I don't know if I'll see it in theater or not, but it looked pretty good. I did not see the Aladdin trailer or the Toy Story 4 trailer. All right. Anybody want to say anything else about their movie-going experience? Michelle?
I'm really glad that I know my local theater. We have one AMC, and I went to that first showing on Saturday. And fortunately, I did, because when I exited, that's where all the lines were, and it was really crowded. I'm just glad I timed it really well.
Haley, do you want to say anything about your movie-going experience?
So I told my fellow co-hosts here that I had tickets to see the movie at Alamo Drafthouse on Saturday, and our theater lost power about a minute into the movie starting. So you see Hawkeye showing his daughter how to shoot an arrow. So we had to frantically attempt to book tickets at another theater, and we ended up seeing it in 3D. So I'm looking forward to seeing this movie in 2D.
When are you going to go see it?
Probably after it dies down.
Okay.
Maybe middle of the week sometime this week or in a couple weeks. I don't know. We'll see.
I'm headed out of town, so I might go see it one night, but I don't know. Probably. I might be, since I saw it twice already, I might have to wait until it comes out on video at this point. We'll see. Lauren, any last words on your movie-going experience?
It was the best birthday present ever. Or it was part of the best birthday present ever, anyway.
It was amazing.
Yes.
So we said, broke all the records just for your birthday. Happy birthday.
Yes. Thank you. I'm 35 and I spent my birthday happy crying.
Make me feel something. That's part of the whole thing. All right. So with that, we're going to move on into some news. Lauren, what you got?
Okay, first off, we have an article from thenerdist.com. Here's what happened in Avengers Endgame final scene. So it addresses mostly all the stuff having to do with Steve going back in time. So it addresses things like, where did old Steve come from? Answer, he went back in time. This article posits that he went back after Agent Carter took place. They say early 50s, I think maybe late 40s. And who is Steve's wife? I think we're safe in assuming Peggy Carter. And what about Peggy's husband? Okay, this article posits that it is in fact Steve, and that the whole knowing Steve and Peggy were married all along makes their reunion in Winter Soldier more layered. Peggy saying goodbye to young Cap, the "it's been so long" thing. And it does present another wrinkle in the timeline. What about Peggy's husband? That the story that she gives about
the 101st.
Is the cover story that she gave him because, hey, he's not supposed to be out of the ice yet.
All right.
We also have from Polygon.com another story on the timeline of the movie. Avengers Endgame's timeline makes sense, and here's why. So it starts off, it's this huge, long explanation, and the things that it reminds us of is that time travel always goes through the quantum realm, and time works differently there. So that's basically our blanket, a wizard did it, of the time travel. And the 6 stones together create a stable timeline, remove one, and an unstable branch is created. So they're saying that all these different, they removed the stones from their timelines, and those became unstable loops, which was addressed in the movie. And do the splinter realities the Avengers create by taking the stones exist? Presumably parts of them do. So the things that got changed in the past when they went back there might have created little splinter realities, like the Loki TV show and young Cap being in the past. I don't know if that's a splinter reality. You can explain that as a splinter reality. Who knows?
What about baby Ant-Man?
He wasn't a splinter reality because they pushed time through him instead of pushing him through time.
Okay.
So the article is a bit of a deep dive into that. Again, kind of the hand-wavy answer is quantum realm did it. On a bit of a lighter and also sort of not light note, LaShawn McCoy spoiled Avengers Endgame to thousands of people on social media, and they are pissed. So if you don't know who LaShawn McCoy is, he's the running back for the Buffalo Bills. He posted shots of himself and his son watching the movies on Instagram stories, just little clips from the clips that were on there. It's just stuff that we've seen on the commercials, so no big spoilers there. But then tweeted about Iron Man's death a couple of times, like, oh, I'm still not over it. Like on opening day. And people are pissed. Like, I mean, calling for him to be removed from the team, calling for him to be banned from Twitter. Pissed. I think that might be a little much.
Yeah. I mean, if you're really trying to avoid spoilers, there are ways to do it, like not go on social media or put blocks in place or something like that. But, I get it. And what makes it more difficult in this particular case is because it is the NFL draft weekend as well. So a lot of people are paying attention to the NFL.
Also, a lot of people do have spoiler blocks in place. However, he misspelled some of the stuff in there and it got around the filters. Yeah, big mess. And last from the news, Marvel's first openly gay character is played by Endgame's director. This is from advocate.com, which is an LGBT website. And it's an interview with the Russos. Joe Russo plays the character in the Snap support group who talks about how his husband's gone. He decided to try dating again. The guy who met him, they talked. He's like, well, when did you cry? I cried. He cried when they brought dinner. I cried in dessert. Joe Russo told Deadline, representation is really important. It was important to us as we did 4 of these films. We wanted a gay character somewhere in them. We felt it was important that one of us play him to ensure the integrity and show it is so important to the filmmakers that one of us is seen representing that. It should be noted that Joe Russo is straight, so a little bit questionable there. And the reaction that I have seen from queer Twitter is very mixed. Yes, it's good that there is a gay character who is just, it's not a big deal. He just says, like, my husband is gone. I tried dating again. I'm dating a guy. They move on. He's just another person experiencing a tragedy. But first of all, we have had Valkyrie, who is bisexual, has played the characters bisexual. Taika and Tessa Thompson have confirmed this character is bisexual. They fought really hard for that, and the scene was cut. And the way that a lot of queer Twitter is seeing this as them pushing so hard is like, what, do you want a cookie? I mean, we've been asking for this for years.
It's okay for a nameless character in the support group to be gay, but not one of the stars of the film.
Yeah. And especially considering that there's a big push for, including from Brie Larson herself, to make Captain Marvel a lesbian or bisexual. And again, it's that, okay, I know small baby steps gets people comfortable, but how many small baby steps do we have to have before you're like, okay, let's just do this?
And considering all the people that they could have had play that character.
Again, there is a really bad history with abled people playing disabled characters in films, with straight people playing gay characters in films, with cis people playing trans characters in films. And it's just, again, it's a really, people in marginalized communities have a hard enough time getting noticed, getting cast. Why couldn't you have just let a gay person play a gay character? I get what you're saying, and I get that it genuinely comes from a good place, but it may not have been the best way to do it. And I get that it also probably needed to be in a small scene so they could release it in China and Russia, but still.
Do you think it was the lines were changed in the dubbing?
I absolutely think so, because it could go from there. I noticed when I was watching the movie, it's like I was dating someone. You can cut out everything that he says and then go to Steve saying something about they.
Yeah, but I mean, if it's being, translated into another language, for example, in China, then you change like 3 words in the dialogue, and he's now talking about his date with a woman after his wife died.
So there's a couple other aspects to the scene. I don't want to minimize this at all, but Joe has done cameos in previous films, and one of the writers, Stephen, who's also in the scene, Stephen McFeely, this is a good place for a cameo for them. And then also I was thinking in terms of, if you don't want any of the story leaking out, you want to minimize the total number of people that are involved in the shooting. I mean, they went to extraordinary lengths of giving out fake scripts to Tom Holland and to Mark Ruffalo. And I can't rule out that they limited the total number of people that were shooting as much as they could.
There are so many other extras and other scenes. One more isn't going to break the film.
Also, this was such a crucial moment for them to include, but they couldn't even bother hiring an actor to do it.
They felt, according to the article, they felt it was important for one of them to play it.
Which, again, I think genuinely comes from a good place from them. But there is a history of people, like marginalized people, being erased and played by non-marginalized people.
It's historically been very brave for straight actors to play gay characters, and not okay for gay actors to exist.
Yes. Look how many, go back to the Oscars and look how many straight people have won Oscars for playing gay characters. Tom Hanks in Philadelphia Story. Go back and see how many cis actors have won Oscars for playing trans characters. Eddie Redmayne in The Danish Girl. Look at how many abled actors have won Oscars for playing disabled characters. Again, Tom Hanks, Forrest Gump, just any amount. Just hire that kind of person that you're looking for. We've talked about this before. Nobody gets to be anybody unless somebody gives them a chance.
It's fair. And Marvel, if you want to give the ladies a chance, they will be welcome to come in and fix your stories. Although I think the Russo brothers and Feige have proven in this case that they got it underhand, but it's not always the case. Iron Fist, let's see, Inhumans. So, yeah. All right. We're going to move into some feedback.
Okay, so we have some feedback from a couple different places this week. First off, from Twitter, I got a DM from Madonna Girl right after the movie. I read that Jarvis is the first Marvel TV character to cross over to a movie. That moment made me so happy, guys. And there was a lot more that we were talking about with Peggy. And again, as soon as I saw Jarvis and Peggy, I was like, I have to talk to Madonna Girl about this. We also have from Mr. Pericles, or from Andy Mingna, replying in a thread to Mr. Pericles and us, Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. Didn't listen in a while, but can't believe anyone predicted that and that.
Staying spoiler free.
Now I want to know what we predicted that shocked him.
I think it was probably the end. We also have from @BornToEatBacon, is it too soon to nominate Kevin Feige for a Lifetime Achievement Award? Discuss.
Yeah, I responded from the Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. Twitter account, I believe, and I meant to put my initials on it, but I don't think I did. In that I don't think that Hollywood is prepared at this point in time to have somebody that is genre exclusive be up for a Lifetime Award. Because you take a look at everybody else that's been up for a Lifetime Achievement Award. Yes, they've done fantasy, they've done sci-fi, they've done other things, but they've also done other drama specific stuff along with it.
I think it's more that he's too young for them to give him a Lifetime Achievement Award.
I think he will probably get some sort of Lifetime or some sort of career award later, because Marvel movies have changed the way that we do cinema, basically. Like, look at all these other, not genres. What's the word?
There are other people trying to do these franchises and build these other worlds like Marvel has. Like DC has failed. Universal tried with their monster movies. That has failed. People are trying to copy, Feige, but they can't.
They're trying to take some of the same lessons. They're not quite there. And Marvel and Feige have had so many plates spinning and have been able to balance them so deftly. And the fact that they have not had a movie flop with 20-something movies is amazing.
Also, if you look at the number of voting members of the Academy who had made bank off of this franchise, that's enough votes right there. 73 main actors in this movie alone.
Yeah. And from Discord, we have, as mentioned earlier, from Johnny Bacon, a spoiler-free suggestion of best times to pee during the movie with a link. We talked about that, about the title cards where you can go. From the Chris Farrell. So spoiler here. Did they change the name of the Falcon and Winter Soldier show now that Sam is Cap? And in regards to the credits, it's not worth staying. The sound at the very end, I presume I had to run out of the theater before that, is a callback to Tony forging the Iron Man armor in the first movie, which is very sweet.
Yeah, it's basically a hammer hitting an anvil 3 or 4 times, that clang over and over again. And if you're not thinking in terms of Iron Man, you're thinking, well, that could be a bell, it could be a call out to something else that they are doing in Phase 4. But no, it's a callback to Tony forging the Iron Man armor in 2008.
When I watch it again, I'm going to have to stay to the very end of the credits this time.
Yeah, it's right at the end, right before the rated R thing came up in my theater.
And Yakko.org said, they've said that Spider-Man is going to be the final film in this phase. I'm imagining that it's going to be an epilogue of sorts, as well as setting up the new status quo. I'm still processing Endgame. My wife said I cried more than her. I'm not surprised. This was a very emotional movie.
Yeah, I was talking to some people at work on Friday, and they were just talking about going to see the movie. And I just said, just so you know, you're going to need some time to process the movie after the fact, because they were going to go see it late or whatever. You're going to want to stay up, and you're just going to want to process it, talk about it with somebody or something, go through your therapy phase, because it is that no matter if you're seeing it for the first time or you're in the Marvel Cinematic Universe or you've seen all the movies and all the TV shows, kind of like what we have, you still need time to process it. All right. I think we've done an epic job of discussing this movie in less time than the movie runtime was. So that's cool. And we're going to go ahead and appreciate America's ass on the way out. Thanks for staying with us for this elongated version of Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. We'll be back next week talking about Runaways and closing off season 1 of Runaways before Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. season 5 premiere the following week.
Guys, it's so close. Thank you for listening all the way to the end of this episode. We know it's long, but we had a lot to say.
Thank you to everyone that's listening. There's a lot going on and a lot of fandoms in, this month and next month. And it's been an emotional roller coaster for all of us, but we're all in this together and we're all going to make it through to summer.
Yes, thank you for listening. And team, thank you for the promotion.
You're welcome. It was very overdue. We love you.
You're going to have a promotion party for us, right?
Yeah, new guy buys drinks.
I'll get right on that.
Until next time, I'm Director SP.
I'm Agent Haley.
I'm Agent Lauren.
And I'm Agent Michelle.
Bye.
Yay!
See you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. If you want to leave us feedback, go to gonnageek.com and you will find all our contact information and other shows. You can also visit legendsofshield.com where you'll find our complete archive of podcasts. The music heard on this podcast is by Kevin MacLeod, found at incompetech.com, and also artists on pond5.com and audiojungle.net. The opinions heard on this podcast are those of the individual hosts and do not represent Stargate Pioneer Productions, Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D, or Gonna Geek. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is the property of the Disney Corporation, Marvel Studios, and ABC. No infringement is intended. Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. is copyright 2013 through 2019.